Do-rag wisdom, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Y2K 20.11.26. Just 56 days to inauguration. The music you hear in the background are excerpts from Bernard Herrmann, his score for Fahrenheit 451, and this was a re-recording. Never kick an enemy when they are down. If you win, be a good winner and never gloat. As things cool down, see if somehow amends can be made on both sides so that you and your adversaries can be at peace. I recall that one of my grammar school bullies was surrounded by students and being aided by a teacher because he was crying like nothing I'd seen. And you know what happened? He was a loudmouth, nasty little thug who thought nothing of humiliating and terrifying me, and now, in front of all these people, crying like a baby. I didn't know anything about hubris or karma back then, but if I did, how much better it would have been had I walked up to my foe and it helped. I will never know because I'd have to be born into another life to find out. Fictional character George Bailey from the classic picture, holiday season picture, It's a Wonderful Life, was able to find out due to, spoiler alerts from here on in, if you've never seen the movie, I don't want to ruin it for you. He was shown what life would have been like if he had never been born. On the way to the lessons to be learned from that experience, George had to learn other lessons. And through the magic of cinema, we get to learn things too. Although George Bailey is the protagonist and hero of the picture, he is not without flaws. This is important because in order for the audience to identify with the character, we must also see that he is as human and as flawed as we are. At a pivotal moment, while George is feeling his worst, he screams at his daughter's school teacher, Miss Welch, over the telephone and makes her cry, blaming her for his daughter's quote-unquote smidgen of a fever. And the woman was calling on her own time, by the way. I was a school teacher, I know what it is. Obviously she cared. Later, while George sits despondently in Martini's diner, reeling from his Uncle Billy's misplacement of $8,000 of deposits, Mr. Welsh, the school teacher's husband, is sitting faithfully right next to him. And when the latter finds out who his barmaid is, punches George in the face. "Bailey? Bailey?" knocking him violently to the floor. The owner, Martini, loves George because George's company helped him to buy his first home. So he takes Mr. Welch and he throws him out, tells him never to come back again. And on his way out the door, Welch screams that George made his wife cry. What would have happened if George never screamed at the dedicated and obviously good-hearted Miss Welch? Would her husband have reason to punch him? It is obvious that we grow friends. We grow them the way that we tend to garden. Cultivate your friendship, garden lovingly, and you will have a big crop of fine friends. But neglect that garden and even abuse it? As heroic as George Bailey is shown to be, he's human. If he doesn't get his way, he can get frustrated and angry and mean like everyone else, yell at the school teacher, blame her. Fortunately for him, he ultimately learns that he spent his life cultivating friends and fewer enemies. Imagine seeing what life would be like without you. Henry Potter is another character in this film. Classic film is the name of the villain of It's a Wonderful Life. He is a sad, bitter, even lonely elderly person who is also confined to a wheelchair and aided throughout the film by a stone-faced bodyguard. His goal, Potter's, is to own everything in the rustic and scenic town of Bedford Falls, New York. The only power standing in his way is the work of the Bailey family, founded by George's beloved father, Peter Bailey. Their Bailey family building and loan is dedicated to helping everyone in Bedford Falls, or whatever, to own a piece of the American dream. Their own homes. The Bailey formula is outright socialism. Everyone pays into the building and loan, which pays for their own homes and pays for the homes of their fellow investor neighbors. If anyone has a health and or a financial emergency, they do not get foreclosed on. During the course of the picture, Potter, the villain, gets control of the town's only bank. Those who invest their savings in the Bailey building and loan, on the other hand, get benefits in purchasing a home. Potter's bank does not have such a benefit because Potter believes that the working person deserves nothing. If Potter can get rid of his only competition in Bedford Falls, he can have it all. By the third act, we are set up for the final conflict, which begins with the stupid move of George's addled but good-hearted Uncle Billy. At the beginning of the third act, George is the apparent winner against the onslaught of Potter, up until the point that Uncle Billy mistakenly hands Potter $8,000 he was supposed to deposit into the bank for the building and loan, and Potter keeps it. Potter is frustrated that the Bailey family never gave up, even after the sudden death of the patriarch, Peter Bailey, in the first act of the movie. So when Uncle Billy jubilantly approaches defeated Potter in the third act to give him news of the homecoming of George's World War II hero younger brother Harry, Potter will not have any of it. The news is all over the local newspaper whether Potter likes it or not, and Billy enjoys lording it over his foe. He laughs at him and sarcastically tells Potter that not all of the heels are in Germany after all, implying that Potter is also or could be a Nazi traitor. And all the while Billy is mocking Potter, he's using the newspaper that he grabbed out of Potter's hand to remind his foe in headlines of Harry's bravery and service. Billy, extremely absent-minded, is so caught up in sadistic glee torturing Potter when he triumphantly and dismissively shoves the folded newspaper into Potter's hands. He does not realize that he has also given Potter the $8,000 that he was supposed to deposit too. A good movie. A great work of art not only entertains, but it also teaches us valuable lessons. Potter is so angry that he's been humiliated in public by one of his worst enemies, member of the Bailey clan, now represented by this creep Billy, that upon discovering that The absent-minded fool gave him the $8,000. Potter decides to keep it, to keep the money, and make it look like George absconded with the funds instead. Those who've seen It's a Wonderful Life, and you should see it, know what happens as the result of Billy's negligence. But what would have happened if Billy had been nicer to Potter? There wouldn't be a movie, of course, but let's speculate. What would have happened if Billy had been nicer to Potter, even inviting him to the holiday homecoming party that they were planning for Harry? Would Potter have kept the money? And would Billy have been so distracted in the first place if he concentrated on being nicer to Potter instead of being crueler to him? There's a lesson to be learned here, ladies and gentlemen, in our era. Never be a bad winner, and never kick a foe when they are down. Whether Trump supporters like it or not, Joe Biden is going to be president. But he is only going to be president because 80 million plus, including me, voted for him. But the vote was not a landslide. With close to 73 million plus votes, 73 million record votes, second place, going for Trump. This is about 45% of the national vote. And many of those who voted for Trump could be acquaintances of mine. There are some whom I even consider friends. It is hard for me to understand how anyone could support a dictator, a sociopath, and a thug to be president of our country. And yet, 73 plus million voters of our country do. How can I even begin to convince these people to get their heads out of the Trump cult? I certainly won't be able to convince them if I laugh at them because they lost, and if I kick them while they are down. Am I supposed to cancel friendships because of politics? Should we all now tear this country apart and allow Putin to pick up the pieces? Putin pick up the pieces. Peter Piper picked up pickled peppers. Whether we like it or not, we need a two-party system in order for our constitutional democratic republic to remain healthy. For that vital reason, I personally do not support the end of the GOP, even though I disagree with them 100%. And I contend that the Trumpists aren't true conservatives, and they aren't real classic Republicans either. Trump lost. To salvage our free country, it is our job to embrace our Trumpy friends and engage in debate. And most importantly of all, be good sports, remain friends, maintain a sense of humor about who we are and what we believe, and never, ever kick an opponent while they are down. It's a Wonderful Life teaches the importance of planting a garden of friends rather than planting a sad, angry garden of foes. You begin the process by understanding that being a good winner also means remembering that all of us are ultimately dust.